The fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow over the bustling hospital corridors, but in her small corner of the world, Nurse Clara Simmons tried to infuse warmth into the stark reality of her job. At 28, she was a dedicated nurse, a life dedicated to care, compassion, and the delicate art of healing. Every day she donned her blue scrubs, a crisp white coat, and a smile that battled against the fatigue weighing down her eyelids. The hospital was Clara's second home, a place where she'd witnessed both joyous recoveries and heartbreaking losses. Yet, for Clara, the financial strain of her position tugged at her heart as keenly as the ache of her patients. Every month, the rent came like clockwork, demanding payment while her meager paycheck barely kept her afloat. Her car was a rusty relic that spluttered more than it drove, and her cupboards often echoed back to her when she opened them, almost empty since she prioritized the needs of her patients over her own. Still, Clara believed that love and empathy should be traded freely. And in the scarcity of material comfort, she had found richness in creating connections. Christmas morning arrived with the softness that blanketed the world outside, but inside the hospital there was no upturn in spirits. Patients lay nestled in sterile rooms, and the reigning silence often stole the cheerful echoes of holiday joy. As she made her rounds, Clara nursed one particular room. The soft whimper of loneliness hung thick in the air. In room 304, on that very Christmas morning, lay Mr. Gordon Hartman, an elderly man with a gentle heart and a turbulent story etched into the grooves of his sun-weathered skin. His family had not come to see him for Christmas. Clara knew the hollow look in his eye all too well. It was a look of deep loneliness, one that felt as pronounced as an unkind whisper. She had heard snippets of Mr. Hartman's life from other nurses. He was a widower, estranged from his busy children who lived in distant states, wrapped up in their own lives, failing to notice the empty chair beside his hospital bed that day. A pang of sorrow struck Clara as she looked at Mr. Hartman, his frail form bundled under institutional blankets. The holiday could have been filled with festive cheer and family embraces, but instead it became a reminder of fragile connections slipping through fingers. "Good morning, Mr. Hartman," Clara said, making her way into the room, her voice laced with cheer. A small smile broke through his tired expression, dim but present. "I brought you a little something." From the pocket of her coat, Clara pulled out a meticulously wrapped package, a simple box covered in festive wrapping paper, adorned with a homemade bow. Inside was a box of his favorite chocolates, one she had set aside from her own meager grocery budget. "It's not much," she admitted sheepishly, watching his eyes widen with surprise. "But I thought you might like a little treat for Christmas." His fingers trembled as they brushed against the box, an unexpected gift that cut through the loneliness threaded through his hospital room's air. In that moment, his small smile widened, revealing the fragile joy wrapped tightly around the bittersweet ache of solitude. "Oh, Clara," he murmured, his voice quaking with emotion, "you didn't have to do this. Thank you. This means so much to me." The corner of his mouth twitched, a flicker of warmth igniting the dimness of his heart. As they sat together, Clara, in her scrubs besmirched with worry, and Mr. Hartman, a soul who just wanted to feel seen, the minutes unfurled into a canvas rich with conversation. They shared bits of themselves, Clara's ambitions of becoming a nurse practitioner one day, and Mr. Hartman's stories of a life lived between the lines of love and loss, of memories nested in joy and heartbreak. "They've always been so busy," Mr. Hartman whispered, staring down at the chocolates as tears briefly clouded his eyes. "I sometimes wonder if I'll ever feel their love again." Clara's heart sank. She could empathize all too well. While her own days revolved around caring for others, sometimes it felt as though she erased parts of herself in the process. But perhaps today the connection they forged would help mend those invisible strands of loneliness she both understood and felt. And so, in that shared warmth, Clara made a spontaneous decision. She decided to invite Mr. Hartman to join her for her lunch break. "I'll be out at noon. Why don't I bring my food in here, and we could share some time together?" "What, just you and I?" His eyes sparkled, the remembrance of company brightening the room. "Yes," Clara affirmed, heart racing in hopeful anticipation, while the tightness in her chest began to release. She realized that her simple act of kindness, this warmth enveloping two lonely souls, could ripple beyond that fractured moment, ushering in the potential for transformation, connection, and perhaps a whole new family dynamic that she could scarcely imagine yet. As Clara finished her rounds, she felt lightness in her heart, as if she had discovered a new purpose woven into her daily grind. With every moment shared, she sought to breathe new life into Mr. Hartman's world, while inadvertently casting a buoyant lifeline for her own. In the midst of bustling nurses and the faint cries of patients, this budding friendship was a small reminder that, while the world outside might echo with the coldness of snow, inside these hospital walls, love could still thaw frozen hearts, even on Christmas Day. The noon sun filtered through the hospital windows, casting a soft halo-like glow over the bleached walls of room 304. Inside, Clara sat cross-legged on a chair opposite Mr. Hartman, her hospital lunch set between them, a simple salad and a leftover turkey sandwich. But today's meal was deeply flavored by the warmth of shared stories and laughter, the bitterness of hospital life blended with the sweetness of companionship. "I used to roam these streets with my wife. Back when we first met," Mr. Hartman recalled, his voice drenched in nostalgia. His eyes glazed as he traced a memory more vivid than the room's dull green walls. "We lived on 3rd Street, just 2 blocks away from here. She always said the best pizza in town was from a little joint called Giuseppe's. One year, she surprised me with a slice, all lit up with candles for my birthday." Clara smiled, her heart swelling as Mr. Hartman painted vibrant images of love intertwined with everyday life, each slice rich with the flavors of kindness and joy. "How beautiful," she murmured. "We should all have such moments to carry with us." Mr. Hartman's gaze shifted toward the window, the visible world bustling with life beyond the glass. "You know, I always thought about opening a place like that, a little coffee shop where people gather." His expression faltered, the shadow of regret mingling with hope. The words ignited a spark in Clara's heart. "You still can, you know. It could be a little cafe dedicated to stories and laughter. You could have a whole wall with pictures of your favorite moments, like a gallery of life." Mr. Hartman chuckled, the sound mingling with the echoes of his memories. "And I'd need a baker who could whip up the best pastries. Wouldn't want the place to go out of business in weeks." "Let's be honest, people will come if you have good coffee and good stories," Clara replied with a grin, nudging the platter of snacks toward him. "And you definitely have the stories to share." As they laughed, the space between them mingled with dreams untold and a friendship blossoming before their eyes. It was a friendship built on kindness, an exchange of lives enriched by sharing experiences that transcended the confines of their individual worlds. A week passed, and every day brought Clara back to Mr. Hartman's room with small gestures, cookies from the cafeteria, encouraging visits, and endless conversations. Each time, she could see energy return to Mr. Hartman's spirit. Slowly, the color returned to his cheeks, and the sparkle in his eyes spoke of someone who had begun to reawaken to life's possibilities. It was on one of those visitations that everything changed. "Clara, I want to show you something," Mr. Hartman announced one afternoon, with an urgency that caused Clara's heart to race. He pulled out a folder from under his bed. "It's an old business plan I wrote years ago for that coffee shop I told you about." Her eyes scanned the pages covered in his delicate handwriting. "You were serious about this?" "Of course I was," he exclaimed, his voice full of enthusiasm. "But life got in the way. The years went by, and I kept pushing the idea aside until it became just a wish. But it's time to put it back into the universe." It felt as if a floodgate was opening. Clara smiled brightly as the momentum of Mr. Hartman's dream pulsed through the air, a tangible energy that made her want to scream with excitement. "You could still do it, Mr. Hartman. Just think." "Think." "I'm thinking," he interrupted with a twinkle in his eye. "With your help, I could turn this dream back into a reality. But here's the thing, I don't know where to start." Clara hushed him. "We'll figure it out together. There are resources, grants, community programs, and even—" She paused, her mind racing, "a crowdfunding campaign." Mr. Hartman's shoulders relaxed as he fervently nodded. "You really think it could work?" Absolutely, she assured him, her own fire ignited by his passion. If we can rally support, tap into the community, the sky's the limit. And if the world knows your story, think of how many people would want to help make your dream come true. As the weeks flew by, Clara dedicated her evenings to research and networking. She shared the blossoming idea with friends and even some of her hospital colleagues, their reactions encouraging yet tinged with caution. "You need money to get started," one nurse pointed out. But Clara remained undeterred. She believed in the magic of Mr. Hartman's dream. Then, one rainy Thursday, inspiration struck. Clara drafted a heartfelt online campaign, weaving words about Mr. Hartman's history, his dreams, his kindness, and the friendships he had cultivated throughout his life. "Together we can help bring this dream to life. This isn't just about a coffee shop, it's about creating a community," she wrote. The campaign went live, and with it came a ripple of kindness that Clara barely expected. Friends, family, and strangers began to contribute, gifting him small amounts that, when combined, flourished beyond her wildest dreams. A week later, Mr. Hartman's humble campaign had raised over $5,000. The hospital room buzzed with excitement as Clara updated him. "We can finally start making moves toward your coffee shop. We can apply for licenses, start securing supplies, and most importantly, we can begin generating a plan." Mr. Hartman's face lit up so brightly it could rival the sun's glow. "Clara, you've brought this back to life. I don't know how to thank you." "You're not just going to thank me, we're going to build this thing together," Clara said, pulling him into a surprise hug. But just as the excitement crescendoed, so too did the complications of the hospital life. Mr. Hartman was discharged, filled with hope and vibrancy, yet still needing to navigate his healing process outside the sterile walls of the hospital. Their friendship transformed into a close partnership, with Clara regularly checking in on him, reviewing plans and brainstorming the logistics of his dream cafe. Then came the turning point. Clara suggested that they host a community event. They could use a local park to showcase Mr. Hartman's story and the vision he had for the coffee shop, a place filled with laughter and laughter. "Perhaps you could introduce storytelling nights," Clara suggested, her mind weaving visions of community gatherings and candlelight. 2 months later, their first event took shape, a small gathering with free coffee, pastries from local bakers, and a community board where they invited others to share their stories, transformed into a shimmering night under twinkle lights. Over 100 people showed up, each drawn by the power of kindness and community. As he stood behind a makeshift counter, Mr. Hartman poured coffee into cups, his laughter echoing among the attendees. That night, Clara watched Mr. Hartman come alive. His wrinkles deepened with laughter, and people listened enraptured to stories of love and ambition. Old friends and strangers connected, sharing dreams, struggles, and memories, all revolving around Mr. Hartman's vision. It was a celebration of kindness and connection, and Clara could feel something magical emerging from the collective atmosphere, a sense of strength and partnership. Then, as the event came to a close, Clara sat with Mr. Hartman back at a small table, both beaming with delight. "You did it," Clara exclaimed. "Look at everything this has sparked, a whole community sharing together." Just then, 2 men approached them with shy smiles, carrying something wrapped in velvet. "We've grown so fond of your story and your vision," Mr. Hartman, one of them said, handing over the package. Mr. Hartman opened it slowly, revealing a check inside, inscribed with the words "in support of your dream." From a future customer, it amounted to $2,000. Tears welled in Mr. Hartman's eyes as he gazed at Clara. "This is incredible. Just think about what we can do with this." Clara embraced him tightly. "This is just the beginning. Your dream is already painting beautiful ripples in the world, Mr. Hartman." That night they carried hope on their shoulders. The coffee shop was no longer just a flicker of a dream in a lonely man's heart. It was a growing possibility, one that would unite people through stories, share kindness, and create a home for laughter. Together, they had sparked a transformation, a legacy built on compassion, supported by a community that would continue to ripple outward, inviting others along on this journey of kindness, healing, and shared dreams. Clara returned home that night with a deeper understanding of the power of connection. She had always known it existed, but the realization that her act of kindness had set off a chain reaction resonated with her profoundly. Within kindness lay the fabric of life, interwoven with dreams, a tapestry that awaited newcomers to add their threads, brightening the whole. As the days pressed on, and a new chapter unfurled before them, Clara felt herself becoming intertwined with Mr. Hartman's dream, a journey of healing, resilience, and the shared human experience that enveloped their sprouting friendship. In the town where they both lived, the footsteps of kind hearts would echo long after they had gone, paving the way for others to step forward with their own stories, creating something beautiful together. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the kitchen in hues of golden sunlight, Clara found herself sitting at her modest table, the remnants of a late breakfast spread before her. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the remnants of the previous night's celebration. Memories of the community event hung in the air still, a vibrant tapestry woven from laughter and shared dreams. She thought back to Mr. Hartman, his eyes glistening with joy as they had mingled with friends and strangers alike, acknowledging the warmth of connection filling his heart. Clara couldn't shake off the image of him behind that makeshift coffee counter, pouring cups of hope, stories spilling just as freely as the rich brew. It was a night of transformation, the beginning of something big. But Clara's own circumstances had not transformed in the same way. While the community event had been a spark of encouragement, the tangled threads of bills and responsibilities still weighed heavily on her. Even amid the flourishing connection with Mr. Hartman and their newfound camaraderie, a shadow of anxiety lurked at the corners of her mind, insistent on reminding her of her financial challenges. Despite everything, she was making strides as a caregiver, but anxiety crept back in, terrified her kindness might not be enough to pay the next month's rent. Yet, that very Monday, everything seemed to shift as Clara walked into the hospital with new determination. After a dedicated morning filled with care for her patients, she found herself gravitating toward the shifts of the hospital's auxiliary boardroom. The annual holiday fundraiser was just around the corner, a chance for nurses and staff to come together and make a difference. As she stepped into the room, a sea of faces greeted her, a mix of familiar colleagues, some she considered friends, and a handful of volunteers from the community. Clara listened closely as the conversation swirled around plans to raise funds, curate events, and gather donations. Then, without fully processing her intentions, the words escaped her lips. What if we featured stories from some of our patients? The ones who have been touched by acts of kindness. The room fell quiet, eyes shifting toward her. Clara felt her cheeks warm but pressed on. We could invite our community to share how they've been impacted by compassion during their time in the hospital. Let them tell their tales, how they healed not just physically, but emotionally, because of the support they received. Kindness changes everything. There was a moment of silence before someone in the back shouted, that could draw crowds. Stories of hope and resilience resonate with so many ideas flooded in, and suddenly Clara was no longer a lone voice, she was a catalyst, igniting inspiration for her colleagues. As those planning sessions turned into meetings, Clara soon found herself immersed in organizing a new fundraising campaign that would bring forth the very spirit of generosity and kindness she had discovered with Mr. Hartman. Each shared story seemed to fan the flames of hope, transforming the task into one filled with purpose. Over the next few weeks, Clara poured herself into the preparations for the event. She connected with patients, encouraging them to share their stories. A mother with a cancer diagnosis who found strength in her children's laughter, a young man who had felt lost until a kind nurse reminded him that he was not alone. Each tale weaved a rich narrative, showcasing the brilliant power of kindness in the most challenging of circumstances. Her collaboration with Mr. Hartman flourished too. The coffee shop idea had transformed from just a distant dream into something tangible, a community initiative that reflected the warmth she had seen that first day they had spent together. Mr. Hartman became the unofficial ambassador of their project, his enthusiasm infectious as he rallied supporters and sponsors in the local area. As the day of the fundraiser arrived, Clara was both anxious and exhilarated. Transforming the sterile conference room into a celebration of stories took hours. But finally, the place glowed with an inviting ambience. Twinkling lights adorned the tables, banners hung overhead crafted with messages of hope, and photographs of the participating patients punctuated the room, like dreams waiting to be celebrated. That night, a sense of serendipity surrounded her as guests filled the room, mingling and gravitating toward the personal tales being shared. As the event unfolded, smiles echoed warmly around, laughter filled the air, and people embraced one another not just in terms of fundraising, but in the connections being built. Mr. Hartman opened the evening with a heartfelt story of his own, a bittersweet reflection on love lost and reclaimed, sharing how Clara's simple act of kindness had changed the course of his life. Clara sat in awe, her heart swelling not just for him, but for the community that had rallied together. As the night wore on, guests shared their stories, and a palpable sense of gratitude enveloped the room. They communicated more than just intentions. They recognized the essential truth that acts of kindness steered the course of lives, providing warmth and solace when darkness threatened to envelop them. When the final tally was called, Clara could hardly believe her ears. Over $10,000 had been raised, a collective embodiment of love, hope, and resilience. The cheers erupted, echoing into the night, and Clara laughed with joy, hugging Mr. Hartman tightly. Their success entwined with the very reason it had blossomed, a success born from kindness and connection. As the event wound down, Clara found herself surrounded by colleagues and friends, their expressions reflecting gratitude. "You've created something beautiful here," Clara, one of her coworkers, told her, glancing around the room where conversations hummed with human connection. And in that moment, amid all the noise and laughter, Clara understood the depths of how her simple idea, the very act of caring, the urge to weave stories together, had sparked a transformation that reached far beyond her hopes. It ignited a community, the lives it transformed perhaps immeasurable. More than that, she had not only nurtured hopes for Mr. Hartman's coffee shop but shaped her own life immensely. The funds they had raised not only supported their dream but eased Clara's own financial burdens. The sense of hope became palpable, almost tangible, rippling into her personal life while invigorating her professional journey. As the last guest trickled out of the room, Clara exchanged hugs and goodbyes, the weight of exhaustion present, but it was blissful. She turned to Mr. Hartman, who stood in a circle of laughter with his family, all abuzz with excitement for the next steps toward his coffee shop. "Thank you for everything," she told him, her voice filled with sincerity. "This wouldn't have happened without you and these stories." He took her hands in his grip warm and firm as ever. "And I couldn't have done it without you. You helped awaken something that had been buried in me for years. We're building something wonderful together." As the day drew to a close, Clara returned home, her spirit buoyed by the knowledge that she had made a difference, not just for herself but for those around her. A sense of belonging enveloped her, as she thought of all the stories yet to be told, the connections waiting to unfold. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Hartman's coffee shop blossomed from a concept into a reality. With their community's support, they secured a small location that radiated warmth, a cozy place with mismatched chairs, laughter woven into the fabric of the decor, and walls adorned with photographs representing the spirit of joy and togetherness through stories. As the coffee shop opened its doors, Clara felt a swell of pride. Each cup poured was steeped not only in rich coffee but in the warmth of shared connections, and each story exchanged at the counter painted the cafe with an aura of positivity, filling it with laughter that echoed far beyond its walls. Though challenges still lingered in Clara's life, the newfound camaraderie fostered a sense of hope illuminated by gratitude, transformations woven through kindness, creating an abundance of connection she had previously thought possible only in dreams. As she stepped into the coffee shop weeks later, Clara felt the changes ripple through her life. The cafe buzzed with blissful chatter, and within those moments, she recognized the truth: kindness, the investment of time, compassion, and stories had shifted things profoundly. With every step she took inside, it was as if she were drawing a map of love, an ongoing journey born from one simple choice to be kind. She understood now, with clarity, that life held limitless potential when shared with others. Each time she encountered a patient in her care, Clara was reminded of the strength of vulnerability wrapped in connection. She vowed to nurture those relationships, a reflection of the vibrancy she learned from her friendship with Mr. Hartman. She would always carry their stories, knowing those narratives had the power to change destinies. As Clara stood behind the counter, pouring herself a cup of coffee while laughter resonated around her, she knew she was part of something greater, a brilliant connection to life itself, intertwined with hope, gratitude, and the strength of kindness that rippled into the world, forever transforming it.